The cafeteria of Terra Station buzzed with the usual midday chaos, a symphony of clinking trays, muffled conversations, and the occasional burst of laughter. Jack Mitchell sat at his usual corner table, mechanically chewing his synthetic protein bar while scrolling through maintenance reports on his tablet. As a junior engineer, he'd grown accustomed to eating alone, finding solace in the quiet corner away from the boisterous crowds. That's when he noticed her. The Zephyrian girl couldn't have been more than 16 in human years, though her species aged differently. Her pale blue skin had an iridescent quality that caught the artificial lighting, and her large silver eyes darted nervously around the room. She moved with the careful precision of someone trying desperately not to draw attention to herself. She didn't succeed. Well, came a voice that made Jack's jaw clench. Marcus Kane, the station's head of security operations, stood with his usual crew of sycophants. Look what crawled out of the refugee quarters. The Zephyrian girl froze, her tray trembling in her delicate hands. Jack recognized her now, one of the refugees from the Zephyr system recently destroyed by a stellar collapse. The survivors had been scattered across human stations, and not everyone was happy about the arrangement. "I heard they eat garbage on their home world," sneered Daisy Chen, Kane's second in command. Despite sharing a human name, she had somehow managed to inherit all of humanity's worst traits. Maybe we should help her feel at home. Before the girl could react, Kane knocked the tray from her hands. The crash echoed through the cafeteria as food scattered across the floor. Conversations died as heads turned toward the commotion. "Oops," Kane said with mock concern. "Clumsy me. Well, don't let us stop you from eating. The floor's right there." The Zephyrian girl's eyes filled with tears, a universal constant, Jack noted grimly. She knelt slowly, her movements controlled despite her obvious humiliation. Around the cafeteria, some watched with uncomfortable expressions while others looked away entirely. No one moved to help. Jack felt something cold settle in his stomach. He'd seen this before, the casual cruelty that humans were capable of when they decided someone was beneath them. It was the same mentality that had sparked wars and genocides throughout their history. But it was also what had forged them into something stronger. Jack stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Every eye in the cafeteria turned toward him as he walked deliberately toward Kane's table. He set his beer, real earth beer, a luxury on the station, down with a soft clink. "Hold my beer," he said quietly to the air. Though his words carried in the sudden silence, Kane straightened, his expression shifting from amusement to wariness. "Something you want to say, Grease Monkey?" Jack ignored him. Instead, he walked over to where the Zephyrian girl knelt beside her scattered meal. Without a word, he knelt beside her and began picking up the spilled food, placing it back on her tray. "Sir?" she whispered in accented standard. "You don't have to." "My name's Jack," he said simply, continuing to gather the scattered items. "And yes, I do." Kane's face reddened. "Mitchell, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Jack looked up from where he knelt, his brown eyes meeting Kane's. "Something my species does better than most," he said, rising to his feet with the tray. "We stand up." The security chief took a step forward, his hand moving toward his shock baton. "You want to make this a problem?" Jack's smile was sharp and humorless. "Marcus, you outrank me. You've got more muscle, better weapons, and the authority to make my life very difficult." He paused, setting the tray gently on a nearby table. "But you know what you don't have?" "What's that?" "The backing of every single person in this room who's ever been knocked down and told to stay there." As if responding to some invisible signal, movement began throughout the cafeteria. It started small, a maintenance worker standing up from his table, then a communications officer, then a medical technician. Within moments, nearly every person in the room was on their feet. Kane's bravado faltered as he found himself facing not just Jack, but a wall of silent, determined faces. Humans from every department, every background, every corner of the station, united by something deeper than rank or protocol. "You see, Marcus," Jack continued conversationally, "humans have this funny trait. We're pack animals, but we're also individuals. We'll follow orders, respect hierarchy, play by the rules, right up until someone decides to make one of us eat off the floor." He picked up a clean plate from a nearby table and began loading it with food from his own meal, then added items from others who wordlessly offered portions of theirs. Then something kicks in, something that made us climb down from trees and build cities. Something that made us reach for the stars when we barely understood fire. Jack handed the full plate to the Zephyrian girl, who accepted it with shaking hands. We remember that we're the species that looked at every predator, every disaster, every impossible challenge and said, "Not today." Kane's crew was backing away now, sensing the shift in the room's atmosphere. Even Daisy had gone pale, her earlier cruelty replaced by uncertainty. "This is insubordination," Kane growled, but his voice lacked conviction. "No," said a new voice. Captain Sarah Reeves stood in the cafeteria doorway, her command uniform crisp and her expression glacial. "This is humanity." She walked through the crowd, which parted respectfully until she stood beside Jack and the Zephyrian girl. "Mr. Kane, Ms. Chen, my office. Now the rest of you carry on." As the security officers filed out, their leader's face burning with humiliation, the captain turned to address the room. "This station operates under human jurisdiction, which means it operates under human values. All sentients aboard this station are under our protection, and they will be treated with the dignity and respect that every thinking being deserves." She looked directly at the Zephyrian girl. "What's your name, child?" "Lixus, Captain. Lixus of the Seventh Wind." "Well, Lixus of the Seventh Wind, welcome to what humanity does best." Captain Reeves gestured to the crowded cafeteria, where normal conversation was slowly resuming, but where dozens of people were making subtle efforts to include the young refugee in their groups. "We're not perfect. We've got bullies and cowards and people who'll kick others when they're down. But we've also got something else." "What's that?" Lixus asked softly. Jack retrieved his beer from where he'd left it, taking a thoughtful sip before answering. "We've got the rest of us." As the lunch period wound down and people began returning to their duties, Jack found himself walking beside Lixus toward the residential section. "Why?" she asked suddenly. "Why did you help me?" Jack considered the question seriously. "On Earth we have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. My species spent thousands of years learning that lesson the hard way. And now we're out here among the stars and we're still learning. But every time someone gets knocked down, every time someone's told they're not worth basic dignity, every time a bully thinks they can make someone eat off the floor." He grinned, the expression fierce and proud. "Well, that's when humans tend to say, 'Hold my beer,' and remind the universe why we made it this far." Behind them, the cafeteria continued its usual rhythm, but something had changed. Word would spread, as it always did on a space station. The story would grow in the telling, becoming part of the station's folklore. The day the humans remembered who they were, the day they proved that some things, dignity, compassion, the simple refusal to let someone suffer alone, were worth more than rank or order or keeping your head down. The day they showed the galaxy, once again, why humanity had earned its place among the stars not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through something far more dangerous to tyrants everywhere: the simple, stubborn refusal to let evil win without a fight. And in the end, that was the most human thing of all.